It's Ash from SuperVideos back for another live stream Q&A video. This is going to be Q&A number 109. Now, I know I'm starting this one a bit earlier, but I do have to kind of go somewhere today, so I thought that I'll do this one earlier. I didn't want to skip it because I skipped the last one or I missed the last one, so I didn't want to miss this one, so I'm just doing it a bit earlier, but we'll see how many people join here and what happens. But of course, we're going into the next episode, season 9, episode 5, which is a big one. Of course, that's the I would say biggest episode that we're gonna see, or we've seen in a long time. And I'm sure there's a lot of things to discuss. We already have discussed a lot during the last couple live streams and last couple videos that we've done, but you know, it's one of those things where however we prepare for this next episode, I don't think we'll ever be prepared. And I know there are definitely speculations that, or rumors that Rega's gonna survive. But that being said, it's going to be very interesting to see how they wrap Rick's story up and what they do with this story. But yeah, the chat is open, so you guys can write your questions in the comments or in the chat and we'll go from there. I'll try to go for 1 hour because I missed the last one and I had to cut the last live stream a bit short. We will do this one for 1 hour, so I started a bit earlier, but we'll go for 1 hour for this one. So we'll just wait to see if anyone asks any questions in the chat here. So there are 2 people watching, but we have no questions yet. And yeah, just I did mention this yesterday as well, but stay tuned tonight for some videos that I'm going to upload. There's going to be a predictions video for the next episode. I know it's late, but I'll kind of upload that, and then after that I'll probably do the review of the last episode as well. So I'll kind of drop both of those at the same time. It'll be shorter than my usual prediction and review videos, but I didn't want to miss it, or I didn't want to skip it. I did say that I might not do a couple of those, but I don't want to skip it completely, so I'll just do it very quickly. Maybe 4 or 5 minute review, 4 or 5 minute prediction. It won't be like 12 minutes and like 5, 6, 7 minutes of the videos like I usually do, but I definitely do want to release those tonight, so stay tuned for those. So as we're waiting here for more people to show up, I will go to the chat or the poll that I had on Twitter to see the result, the latest results. So for those of you that don't know, I regularly put these polls on Twitter for recent stuff for Walking Dead and maybe other stuff as well. The last one I did was last week, and let me just find it here. So there's actually 3 days still left to vote, but 24 people voted. And the question was, do you like how Rick's death is being handled? 79% said no, and 21% said yes. And I'm with the 79% of people. I don't really like how his death was handled, but the poll is still open, so you can go and participate there. And I'll share the latest results during the next live stream as well. And I might even put more after, the next episode airs. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to discuss after next episode, a lot to do, or a lot that we can do in terms of polls and kind of asking for your opinions and your questions. So I'll be doing those as well. So stay tuned for those on Twitter as well, and follow me on Twitter if you want more information about uploads on the video, about video live streams and things of that nature, as well as polls and stuff like that. So since there's no comments or questions here, I will go on just I guess you could say commercial of some sorts. I'll put a picture and we'll wait to see how many people show up, and then I'll be right back. Alright, I am back. It seems like there's still no questions, but we'll see kind of how many people show up and how many people have actual questions. But for now, I'll kind of stick around for a little bit, and then we'll see how many people actually ask questions, and we'll go from there. Kevin Vlogs, how will Rick die? Well, if he actually dies, I think he'll die because of what happened in the last episode. So he is injured. He did kind of fall into that rebar. So I think he's just going to lose a lot of blood and die as a result of that injury if he's going to die. I don't think they'll kind of have a twist where he dies because of something completely different. There's possibility that he might actually be surrounded by walkers as well and not die just from the rebar and the blood loss. But if I were to make a prediction right now, I think the highest chance of, or the most likely scenario for him to actually die is dying from the blood loss, from the injury that he got in the last episode, from the falling into the rebar. But, you know, like I said, they could do something crazy where they have a twist so that he dies something, or in a way that's different than what we see, you know what I mean? But for the most part, I definitely do think he's just gonna die from blood loss, from falling into the rebar. Kevin Vlogs, maybe he turns and that's why blood is dripping from on the shoes. They could go that route. They could have him just die, like I said, he could just die from the blood loss and turn into a walker. I had to restart the stream here because it's red now. There we go. So yeah, like I was saying, there is a possibility that they could have him turn into a walker. And in my opinion, that could be one interesting twist. I'm not saying I like it right now. Depends how they do it and how they play it out, or how it plays out. But that's definitely a possibility, that he turns and he's walking as a walker when blood is dripping on his shoes or his boots. That's definitely a possibility. However, the way he was walking in that scene we saw in the trailer with blood dripping on him or his boots, it didn't seem like it was a walker. He was walking kind of like dragging himself, you know what I mean? It didn't look like it was a walker. It could be though. Like, I'm not saying it's not 100%, but there's a possibility that you are absolutely right about that. But there's also a possibility that they're not going to go that route. Voltix33, hi Ash, hi, glad you could join. Kevin Vlogs, I'll feel bad for Michonne. Yeah, I think first Judith, we would feel bad for Judith first, because Lori, you know, no matter what happens to Rick, if he dies or survives and just leaves, Judith is not going to have his father with her, right? So it started with Lori, no mom, then Carl, no brother, and now his dad, no dad. So Judith has had it the toughest, I would say. So Michonne, yes, but for Judith, it'll be devastating, I think. I think depending on what they want to do, they could do something very interesting with the Judith character going forward after having witnessed three big, not witnessed necessarily, but not having basically her entire family with her. Of course, Michonne is going to be with Judith, but is that going to be enough for Judith? You know what I mean? I feel like there's going to be some sort of, I don't know how to put it out, but she's definitely going to feel left out in some ways. And yeah, she's going to, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I wonder if they're going to have a big impact on Judith and potentially push Judith into becoming a very badass character in the future. Maybe even replacing Carl. They could be doing something very interesting where Judith is Carl from the comics. And, you know, like the storylines that Carl has in the comics going forward are going to be given to Judith. That's definitely a possibility. And there are definitely similarities now. More similarities between Judith and Carl's stories from here on in terms of what happened in the comics and the show. So, yeah. I'm very interested to see what they do with Judith the most. I think the camera just disconnected here. Let me reconnect the camera and jump back into the questions. You can still ask your questions. I'm just trying to fix the camera here. We should be good to go. All right, let's go to the questions, see what I missed. Kevin Vlogs, what about Lydia and Carl's story? Who will Judith have? That's a tough one. That's a tough one with Judith, or not Judith, with Lydia. That's definitely a tough one. They could remix it a little bit and still give it to Judith, but there's also a possibility they might give it to Henry. They might even, or there's a possibility they might give it to Enid. So there's definitely different possibilities, but I think they are going that route, giving Judith, or giving, Judith Carl's comic storyline when it comes to the Whisperers. Voltix33, there's more spoilers out there. I hope it's AMC misleading everyone. Maybe they filmed a fake scene or something. Yeah, I have heard a lot of spoilers, even though I've said over and over, no spoilers in the chat and comments. People keep putting spoilers. And just a reminder, no spoilers, please. But yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, it'll be perfect if it's misleading us, because then it'll actually be shocking at this point. Because I've heard a lot of things unwillingly pointing to the fact that the episode is going to end in certain ways, and, you know, certain things are going to happen to Rick. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But there's definitely a possibility AMC are misleading us. But at the same time, these spoilers come from the reliable sources most of the time, and they've most of the time been right about all of the spoilers. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And Ahum, hi there, Ash. Hi, how are you? Glad you could join. Kevin Vlogs gotta go. All right, thank you for joining and asking questions. I appreciate it. And whom, if Judiths does call in the chopper, do you think Judiths will go with Rick? P.S. There are no spoilers. No one knows. People are only doing good detective work like the Carla postbox. Yeah, I've heard that rumor or that theory before, so it's definitely not a spoiler. I hope it's not, but yeah, there's definitely a possibility that Judiths does that, and that could very well link in with Rick's disappearance, or if Rick survives, how he survives. And we've kind of seen a lot of hints at that, and I've done another video talking about that as well, but that's definitely a possibility. But in terms of whether Judiths is going to leave with Rick or not, I think she has to. I don't think the other group, or I don't think Judiths just will give someone away like that. I think in her mind, she is thinking of her own survival first and foremost. So I think she's definitely going to try to go with Rick and take advantage of the opportunity to get away. Plus, Father Gabriel is probably not dead. He's not going to die, and he might tell everyone about what Judiths did. And I don't think Judiths will want to take that risk of staying and having to explain to everyone, you know? So, yeah, I think there's definitely this possibility that Judiths does trade Rick to the helicopter people, or that community where the helicopter comes from, and go with them. Voltix33, I don't want Rick's story to be open-ended because it will be like with Morales, fans will never stop asking for him to come back. Absolutely. You just took the words out of my mouth, and I've talked about this actually before, but I've said the thing with his open-ended story is that it limits how much we enjoy mysteries or storylines coming in the future without having to connect it to Rick coming back. Like, if fans can jump at the opportunity to connect some mystery or some storyline to Rick coming back, they're going to immediately do that. And it just takes away from how much we enjoy certain mysteries or scenes or storylines for what they are, without having to connect it to Rick's death all the time. So the camera died again. I'm not sure what's going on with my camera. Let's see if we can connect it back here. Should be good. I hope that's the last time that happens. All right, jumping into the questions. So I hope that answers your question. That wasn't really a question, that was a comment, but I totally agree with you. Ronnie Thomas, do you think Carol could die this season, taking Ezekiel's death? There's a possibility, yes. I think 3 people could potentially take Ezekiel's comic storyline when it comes to the new Whisperers, the new villains, the Whisperers that are going to be coming up. Ezekiel himself, Carol, or Jerry. Or, yeah, I think these 3 are the main ones that could take that. Ronnie Thomas, I hope Rosita will have a big role this season. I don't think she will, and I don't think she's going to have her comic storyline. I'm not going to go in details, but I don't think that she will have her comic storyline. And I definitely do think that she won't, or yeah, I think she won't have a lot of story in the second half, and she won't have a big role. In season 10 she might, but I don't think she will in the second half. Or the rest of this first half. Ronnie Thomas, do you think they could put animals in season 9? What do you mean? Like a tiger again? I don't think so. I don't think they're ever going to do something like that again. It's going to become repetitive, so I don't think they're going to do that, but yeah, they might bring horses in. They've already done that. They might bring a pet in, like a dog. They've kind of talked about that, and there has been rumors about that. So yes, if that's what you're referring to, like a dog or a pet of some sort, or more horses and things like that, yes, I do think so. But not another tiger. Definitely not. Anahum, did you know someone saw Heath and Tara's van in the back of Heapster's junkyard? Do you think Heath was kidnapped? And if he was, could he possibly film or a series with Rick? Yeah, I think that's probably what happened to Heath. He was kidnapped. I don't think there's any other thing that could have happened. They haven't explained it, and I don't think they will. They might connect it somehow to Rick when Rick decides, or Andrew Lincoln decides to come back. They might do a movie or a series or something like that, like you say, with that. But I think the best bet at this point would be to say that he was kidnapped. Heath was kidnapped the same way that Judiths was going to trade in Rick in the past, Negan, and Gabriel. Ronnie Thomas, do you think Maggie will exit the show? Yes, she will exit, but it's been confirmed that her story will be open-ended, so she will return in the future. And there's definitely a lot of hints about what could potentially happen to Maggie, how she could have her open-ended story. One of those is the new group that they keep talking about that we saw in season 8. Georgie, if you remember, she was one of the people that came with 2 of her people, giving Maggie this booklet of the future. That's what Maggie used to build Hilltop and other communities, or help build other communities and expand them. And I think, and we've seen this season that she keeps sending Maggie letters. And I definitely think that that might be how they connect Maggie's send-off or story. Open-ended storyline. They might connect that to her leaving to that community where Georgie is somehow. And I was thinking of doing a standalone video on that. I'll probably do it next week sometime. But yeah, that's one way they could do it. The other way, which is, I would say, also interesting, is if whatever happens to Rick, if they make it so that whatever happens to Rick makes Maggie want to just leave because she feels responsible. I think that's also an interesting way to go about it. Anahum, oh my god, so glad if 2 Sight doesn't have her comic role. 2 Sight. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Voltix33. Do you think the helicopter is just a remixed version of the Commonwealth? No, I think that's completely different. I don't think it is. I think it's more likely for Georgie's story to be a remixed version of the Commonwealth, less the helicopter. I don't think the helicopter is connected to the Commonwealth at all. Ronnie Thomas, I think Daryl will blame himself for Rick's death. Yes, definitely. And Maggie as well, I think. Anahum, in the trailer for the next... Assuming Rick dies. One thing to put out there. Anahum, in the trailer for next season, there was a picture of the dog. So excited, as I think animals could have been seriously missed. In World War Z books, dogs play a big role. Yeah, I didn't see the dogs in the trailer like you say. I'm not sure if you mean this season or what, but yeah, I do think that that's an interesting thing to add into the story. Bringing like a dog, like what you say. I agree with that. Anahum, sorry, I meant Rosita in the earlier comment. Auto cue, change it to Sight. Oh, no worries. So let me reread that. So glad Rosita doesn't have her comic role. Yeah, I don't think she will. If you're referring to the lineup scene that's going to be coming up with the Whispers, and it's not like Negan's lineup scene, it's completely different. If you mean that, then yeah, I don't think she will get that. I think she'll get a different storyline. Ronnie Thomas, how do you think Daryl will react if Carol dies? He will be devastated, and he might go back to his irrational behavior, I think. Same with Rick. I think those work essentially the same way. If Carol dies or Rick dies, for Daryl, the impact will be kind of the same. Not saying that he won't be more devastated with Carol's death than Rick's death, but I'm just saying that he will pursue his irrational actions and behaviors the same way in both circumstances. So we're 38 minutes in, and like I said, we'll go for 1 hour. I do have to get going in half an hour here, so, and that's why I actually started this stream earlier, because I do have to get going somewhere. So we'll go for 30, plus or minus 30 more minutes of rapid fire Q&A, and that'll be the end of the stream. The stream started slow, but we are getting some good questions now, which is great. And I assume the scene with Carol and Rick in the last episode really affected me. Maybe their last ever scene together. Possibly. They're basically spoon-feeding it to us that this is going to be Rick's last couple episodes, right? Not only did they just come out and say it, but the scenes he's had with not only Carol, but the scene he had with Daryl recently, with Eugene, and other characters, it's like a last one-on-one between him and the other character. So it's kind of tough to not look at it from that perspective. Even if they didn't tell us that it's going to be Rick's final episodes, with those scenes, I think we would have known right away. You know what I mean? Or we would have suspected something. Ronnie Thomas, The Walking Dead is not Rick's story. Do you think this is true? No, I think it is Rick's story. It could be more than that, but at this point, it's Rick's story. There's just no way around it. At this point, this is Rick's story. Could they change it? Yes. Will it be easy? No. Ronnie Thomas, do you think Lori could appear in the next episode? It's possible. We do know that Shane is coming back. We do know that Hershel, rest in peace, Scott Wilson. Just wanted to put this out there. We do know that Hershel is also coming back. His final ever scene, I think, in any, entertainment, movies, shows. I think that was his last thing, which is kind of sad, really, actually. Yeah. But we do know those are coming back. There's also a possibility that Sasha could be coming back. Maybe Beth, I've heard something like that as well. So could possibly be Lori in that lineup. Not lineup, but in that group as well. So Lori could definitely be coming back as well. I hope they bring Carl back too. I think everything has been about Carl's vision for Rick. So if Rick is going to have his send-off, and he's getting his send-off lined up with Carl, right? Like, those two are kind of connected somehow. So it would make the most sense for Carl to also be coming back in Rick's visions. And it's a big missed opportunity if they don't do that. Voltix33, what do you think Dwight will do in the comics? And is that him that points a gun at Rick and the governor in issue 186 cover? Let me think. Have I seen that cover? I think I missed that cover, maybe. But in terms of the comics with Dwight, I think Dwight is not disloyal to Rick. I don't think Dwight is going to be disloyal to Rick. I think that he might not fall in line with Rick's decisions all the time, and it leads to a lot of tension between those two. We've seen that before, and I think it's the same thing. I don't think he's being disloyal to Rick, and I don't think that he will kill Rick and the governor, but at the same time, it's interesting, and I don't want to jump into that too much because there might be a lot of non-comic readers on the chat, but I don't think Dwight is disloyal to Rick. I don't think that's in his mind right now. Anahim, did you notice the callback to season 1 when Rick said to Daryl, "Brother, take my hand"? Merle said in season 1, take your old friend Rick's hand. Yeah, I did. And that was epic. That was pretty epic. Definitely. And not just that, but I just absolutely loved the conversation between Rick and Daryl in that pit. That was my favorite scene in that episode. Ronnie Thomas, no Glenn and Carl, that would be disappointed. So disappointing. Yes, I completely agree with you. I think if you're going to take Maggie out of the story, give us a Glenn as a flashback or a hallucination or something like that. I know Maggie's not dying, but still. If you're taking Rick out of the story, give us a Carl, you know? Through hallucination, flashback, something. Shane is coming back, great. Give us Carl as well, you know what I mean? And the fact that Hershel is coming back, and Sasha, it leads me to think that they have something planned for Maggie's send-off as well. So why, or it wouldn't make sense for Glenn not to be there as well. And same with Carl for Rick. Anahum, it would be incredible if Glenn is featured in Rick's vision, although I've heard he said no, sadly. Yeah, that's sad. It would have made the most sense for Glenn to be there, and Carl. For both Maggie and Rick's story. Anahim, I will be so bummed if Dwight doesn't come back in the series at some point. I think he will come back. There's been rumors that he's going to come back near the end of the season, but he's coming back for sure. I don't think they will just end that story. That's just too much of a disappointment as far as comics go, because he was one of the characters that there was a lot of fans wanting more of, you know, in the show. Roddy Thomas, do you think the helicopter could be the one that starts the virus? Could be the one that starts the virus. I don't think I know what you mean. Like the zombie virus? I don't think so. That doesn't make sense. Are you talking about the same helicopter? I don't know what you mean by that. But the short answer is no. Whatever you mean, I don't think it makes sense for the helicopter to be involved in it. Ronnie Thomas, could Daryl be in a romance with Rosita? Do you think it could happen? It could. They haven't built it up yet so that it makes sense. It's going to feel a little forced at this point. It's going to feel less forced for Daryl and someone like Laura. They've kind of been hinting at some things. But for Rosita, I think it's a little forced. But could it happen? Could they build it up? Yes, definitely. Voltix 33, if Rick's story is open-ended and helicopter was brought just for it and won't come back, that'll be very disappointing. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. They've been advertising the helicopter a lot. And if that's all it is, then I'm sorry, that's just underwhelming. Because the main reason is because that was the initial prediction most people had. That, you know, that was what the helicopter was, connected to Anne or Judiths somehow. And that's how Rick was going to leave. That was one of the first theories out there. So, if you're talking about making it shocking, not shocking at all whatsoever. Ronnie Thomas, how do you think Judith will be after Rick missing? Or dying? Just putting it out there. I talked about this earlier on in the stream. I think she will be devastated, and I think whatever happens to Rick might impact Judith the most. And we might see a different Judith in the future. And they might line up Judith's comic or Judith's future with Carl's future from the comics. Anahim, I was worried that were going to give Dwight's story to Daryl. Or that they were going to give Dwight's story to Daryl. Yeah, I was as well. But I'm glad that they kind of remixed it even more and they changed it up. Alright, the camera's off again. So let me connect it again. I don't know what's going on with my camera. This software that I'm using to kind of project the camera onto the screen here is not working properly whatsoever. And it keeps just dying on me. Let's hope that it'll be better now. Anahum, is there going to be a Rashon baby? Could be. They did hint at it. Could be. Ronnie Thomas, I could imagine Judith 10-year-old be a badass. Yes, absolutely. And if you think about it, I think in the comics at this point, Carl was about 10, 11, 12, something like that. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. So, or he might have been older. I think he might have been older. I take that back. I think he might have been around 16. I might be wrong, but still they could potentially give that story to Judith. Voltex 33, plot twist, helicopter takes Rick, but Rick dies from the wound. It would be amazing. No, that would be a big disappointment. That would be an even bigger disappointment, I would say. That would be like F you to fans, in a way. Ronnie Thomas, how do you think Rick will die in the comics? The comics is interesting. I think if Rick dies in the comics, it'll either be connected to the next big story that we have, which is the Commonwealth and the tensions that are building between them, or he might just... Yeah, I think that's... It's tough. It's tough for the comics, because the comics, it's at this point so much different than the show. It's tough to kind of think about what they might do. But how do I think he's going to die? I hope he gets an epic death. I mean, I hope it's more shocking than what they are potentially doing for Rick in the show. Anahum, I think they will give Carl's story to Henry until Judith is older. I think Carl in the comics is around 15, 16. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right about that. They might give it to Henry, absolutely, but they might give parts of Carl's story to Judith as well. So Henry might not get all of Carl's comic storylines. I think he'll be split between Henry, Enid, and Judith. Ronnie Thomas, Negan won't come back in the comics. Robert Kirkman said it. How do you feel about that? Yeah, I've heard about that, and I mean, Negan, for what he was, he stayed around for a long time. Did he get the right send-off? I think so. I think that last scene with Maggie in the comics was absolutely epic. And they're obviously going to do something like that in the show as well, maybe even in the next episode. But I don't think Negan will leave like he does in the comics. I think they're bringing it earlier in the show because Maggie is leaving or Lauren Cohan is leaving. But I don't think that that'll lead to Negan going away like it does in the comics. But going back to what you said, I'm not disappointed. I think he got a deserving send-off, Negan. And if anything, he might come back way in the future. And it might be a completely different Negan. It might not be the same Negan. And that might be what Robert Kirkman is pointing at here. That we will never see the same old Negan. Anytime. Ronnie Thomas, do you think they should have killed Negan? Ooh, that's an interesting one. In the show or the comics? The comics, it kind of worked. In the show, felt forced a little bit. Do I think they should have killed Negan? If I was a survivor with them, if Rick made that decision, would I have agreed with them? Probably not. But it's one of those things where you won't know until, you know, you are in that environment and that scenario. All right, we're 53 minutes in. We'll go for 5 more minutes of rapid fire Q&A here, and that'll be the end of the stream. We got some great questions this stream, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next episode. I'm very excited for the next episode. Not so excited because I am worried about certain things that they might do, but I'm excited generally speaking. Voltix 33. Who is better fighter, TV show Morgan or comic princess? TV show Morgan all the way. Anahum, series is catching up to the comics fast. Will the series writers have to come up with brand new storylines totally? FYI, I think Kirkman said we won't see Negan. I think the man will return. Yeah, I don't think we will see the same Negan, but Negan will come back. I agree with you there. But going back to what you said about them catching up to the show, to the comics, I don't think so. I mean, the comic issue comes every month, and we're just getting into the Whispers now. Like, we haven't even got the Whispers yet. So I would say the Whispers are going to be introduced in the second half of season 9, maybe next couple episodes. But then we won't get into or dive into the storyline with the Whisperers until season 10. And that'll maybe take us half a season. And then the second half will be the introduction of the new community where we are in right now in the comics. And if you think about it, that's months and months and months ahead. So that means we're going to get tons and tons and tons of new issues coming up for new storylines. So I don't think they will ever catch up. So I don't agree with that. But is it possible that they might add in storylines along the way and have storylines unique to the show? Absolutely. Ronnie Thomas, do you think Negan and Daryl will talk to each other? They might. They might. I don't think Negan will be in his cell when that happens, because I think he's going to run away before that, or escape before that. Ronnie Thomas, which characters do you think is not useful? Which characters are not useful? That's a good question. Let me think. In the show, that's a tough one. I would say the saviors that are creating problems are not useful. Who else? You could say Father Gabriel is not useful. Judiths for sure. That's all I could think of right now. Anahum, continued Kirkman is a bit of a troll. As you say, I think Negan, as he was before in the zombie apocalypse, may return. As you say, maybe now using his real name. Could be, definitely. Or we could see Negan with another group and kind of see Negan's perspective through that. So we will have the current storyline, and at the same time we will see Negan pop in here, you know, in some issues where he is in another community. He might be using the same name, he might even be acting somewhat similar, but he won't be integrated into the show or into the main storyline anymore. You know what I mean? Ronnie Thomas, if you could choose how Rick exits show, how would you do it? Or how he would exit the show, how would you do it? If I were to have him have an open-ended story, then I would say I would connect Rick to a potentially new community of some sorts. You know what? This is what I would do. I would have Rick find, as he's doing, searching for supplies, he's far away from the other communities, right? And then he finds a new community and he tries to see what they're all about. And he gets captured. And then we don't hear from him. That could be one way. It's not the best way, but that could be one way if it's open-ended. But if you're saying, and also one thing I want to say, and what you could do is potentially have, actually, no, you know what? This is what I would do. This just popped into my head, and it could absolutely be epic. I would have, you know what? This might actually be what they're doing right now anyway. But this is what I would do. I would have Rick get an injury and be taken by, or he'll be far away from the community so no one knows where he is. He'll get injured and a group pick him up. Find him and pick him up. And maybe the injury is so that Rick is in a coma again. Now, stay with me here. And they take him away and, Rick wakes up, but he has no memory of what happened. And that's what they leave us with. That'll be it. And then maybe later on, we will have Rick slowly regaining his memory and finding out or learning about his past and trying to find the people that he once was with. And maybe that's way in the future. That could be one interesting thing they could do. And what they could potentially do is have a movie about this. A movie with Rick, like what I just said. And it would be down the line, way in the future. And we might not get to it for a long, long time. Like in future seasons, we might, get to where the storyline with Rick takes us. And maybe at the end of this series or movies or whatever you want to call it, Rick gets a big clue about where he once was, Alexandria or something like that. And, he goes searching for the others. That'll be the end. And then in the show, later on, we will have Rick coming back. That could be one interesting way if it's open-ended. I think that would be pretty cool. And if they were going to have him die, I would say if he died saving the group somehow, and I think it's the same as what they're doing right now, but it's a little underwhelming still. So ramp it up a little bit, make it more exciting, but still have it be that, he's saving other people. He's saving communities. And maybe if he's going to die, like I said, maybe he gets bit here, but he fights on. He continues fighting. And, he's surrounded by walkers, but he keeps fighting. He keeps, killing the walkers. And maybe in the chaos, he finds a way to push the herd away or distract the herd and make them go somewhere else. And potentially they fall into some area, and maybe that's how, or the walkers keep falling and they die, and maybe that's how the others can potentially defeat the walkers and kill the walkers. And that'll be the epic send-off. Rick saves the groups. He's bit everywhere, but he is still surviving. And then he has to be put down by someone. I think that would have been an epic death for him. I do have to get going here in like a minute or two, so I'll jump into the questions quick, and that'll be the end. Voltix33, how many seasons of Fear the Walking Dead do you think we'll see? Fear the Walking Dead is just not great, I would say, at this point. So maybe just 6 seasons at this point I could see, but not further than that. Anywho, I really hope the horse survives this time. The horse begins Rick's story by throwing him and now ends Rick's story by throwing him. Horses have such a bomb deal in The Walking Dead. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. That horse is one hated horse though at this point, the white one. Ronnie Thomas, with Maggie gone, Rosita is now the hottest girl. Yeah, you could say that. Anywho, I believe Rick should always die as a hero, saving as many people as possible. Rick should die upholding the highest ideal of humanity. Absolutely. And then Hugh said that the spelling changed, no worries. Voltix33, how would TV show Governor react to the Whisperers? Would he win or lose? I don't think he would win. I think he had too much of an ego to really work with the communities to be able to defeat this big threat. So I think he would lose in the long term. Alright, that's it for this live stream Q&A. Thank you everyone for joining and asking questions. This was a great Q&A, some great questions. I hope you guys are all as excited as I am for the next episode. Definitely will be doing a reaction this time. I missed the last reaction, but I won't miss this one. So I'll be doing a reaction and the other videos will fall in place just like always. But tonight, stay tuned for my prediction for this episode and my review for the last episode because I missed those last week. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.